Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
I've shown that there's more than a traditional creator that. So that makes sense. And I've
Yes.
given light to people like your good self, no disrespect. Have had people like you on my show. I've had up and coming creators. I've had big creators on. I've shown that they're still fans and things like that. And Dom calls me the wrestling journalists all the time. And I'm like, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, please do not adjust your television set. This is Tom Talks Rubbish, but I'm not Tom. I may talk a lot of rubbish myself, but my name is actually Ben Veal, and I'm the host of Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, real talk from real talent. I've got a lot of admiration and appreciation for Tom's show, his interviewing style, and his passion for championing others. And so it's an absolute pleasure to be turning the table on Tom today and asking him the big questions about himself and his wrestling journey on this very special episode of TTR. Tom, welcome to your show. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you for doing this, man. Like, when I put that call out and you said I'd be honoured to do it, I was like, yep, he's definitely the man that I want to do it because he's very good at what he does.
Oh, it's very kind. Absolute pleasure. I was a guest on your show, I think earlier this year, last year. I can't remember now.
It will be last year by the time this one goes out. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, really love your style. Love what you do. I love your kind of commitment to championing others within the wrestling community. So today we're going to learn all about you, and you're going to be the one who has to answer questions. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay. So where does it all begin for you then? So, this world of wrestling, how did you first discover it? How old were you? And who was your favorite wrestler when you first found out about pro wrestling?
So when I was a kid, I'm from a divorced family, and sports was always my dad's thing. When I'd go over there at weekends, football would be on, or golf, or tennis, or just any sport you could find. And then, as you know, Ben, this is 2009 time. Sky Sport had WWE. And I remember one of the times, I can't remember what the initial thing I saw was, but in between football games, a rerun of SmackDown was on. And I just remember seeing a glimpse of Batista in a suit with the World Heavyweight title. And then I think my dad literally went, nope, wrong channel. Football's on this one. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that image stuck with me. And then I think we were in Asda at the time, because the Asda where I lived, the George had like a massive DVD section. I'm giving away my age here, but do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I saw WrestleMania 22, because the initial plan for WrestleMania 22, as I learned later, even though Batista was injured, the initial plan was Batista Orton. So he was on the cover art with Orton. And I was like, Dad, that's the guy I saw. That's the really cool guy. And he was like, you get the classic speech from your parents, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. You don't want to watch that stuff, boy. It's a load of rubbish, ironically, because it's the word that I will never use, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but eventually he was like, I'll go on then. I think he bought it for me. And I remember this had been watched so many times, though. Whoever traded it in, the disc quality wasn't great.
Okay.
So the first match I actually saw, which isn't the match that kicks off WrestleMania 22, but is like a middle of the road match, but it's definitely not middle of the road in terms of match quality. It's Mick Foley versus Edge.
Oh, yes. Great match.
Mm-hmm. So I saw that, and then that flaming table spot, and I was like, yep, I'm locked in for life. And then later in the show, Batista has a segment with Orton where he's like, I think he's out of a triceps injury at the time, and he's like, I'm coming for your world title as soon as I'm healed, for lack of a better word. Whoever wins.
And you're like, yeah, that's my guy.
That's my guy, exactly that. But believe it or not, Ben, this was 2009. So I didn't know that it was 2009. So again, I started watching Batista again because SmackDown. Do you remember this? You know, Sky One, the TV channel.
Yep.
They showed like a truncated version of SmackDown, didn't they?
Yeah, it was awful. Yep,
Oh yeah.
with the piped in crowd noise and
Oh, it
cutaway
was
shots.
awful.
Yep, awful.
But I didn't know that at the time. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
thought it was the most amazing thing ever. So I'd see Batista with Rey Mysterio at the time. And this was in the build to Bragging Rights '09,
Right. Okay.
where there was that fatal four-way match of Batista, Ray, Taker, and was it Punk? It was Punk, if memory serves.
Okay.
And me, and because I got my sister into it at the time, was like, Dad, can we? Like, can we order the pay per view? Like, and he was like, yeah, go on then, sort of thing. And I remember we stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning eating rubbish and stuff and just watching the pay per view. And the memory that always sticks with me, Ben, is the "You're supposed to be my friend" promo after that match. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Trying to think. Who was that between?
Batista and Rey Mysterio. So Batista
Okay.
has been cost the world championship um, by Ray because it's fatal four way and first pinfall wins, right?
Yep.
So he was like, "You're supposed to be my friend. I'm tired of coming this close." And that's when he's kicked in the head. But Ray's kicked in the head, and that's where we get. Do you remember Batista's final run of like
Yes.
that Hollywood
Tremendous.
asshole,
Yep.
for lack of a better word?
Amazing. Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Best
so
work of his
that,
career.
oh, I agree. That
Yeah.
sort of brought out hit that Hollywood stuff, and that was it. I was hooked. I'd sort of convinced my dad by this point that it was my passion and not just a phase, and I was hooked. Sorry, dude, I rambled a little bit
No,
there.
it's all good. So you first experience in 2006, WrestleMania 2022,
No, no, no.
2009. You experience it 3 years
2009.
later.
Yes.
Okay. So you're watching footage from 3 years ago. It's a bit like me because I was watching lots of the late
Mm.
80s stuff in the early
Yep.
90s. Do you then carry on? Have you literally continued to watch wrestling religiously since '09, or have you wavered and lost your way a bit over the years?
Kind little column A, little column B. I've always been a wrestling fan, but I have had dark spots in the fandom where I wasn't watching live. I've always caught up on clips or
Mm.
pay-per-views and stuff. Because for people that may not know, it's quite widely publicized now, but I've got cerebral palsy, which is like a muscle condition that it affects my legs. It can affect all four of your limbs. So I went to a school when I was in secondary school that was very geared towards people in wheelchairs and that with like physios, occupational therapists, and things like that. So I did have a dark spot in my fandom from about late 2010 to 2012, where I just wasn't watching live. I was still catching up because YouTube was a thing at this point.
Yep.
Videos and DVDs was a thing at this point, but I just wasn't watching live. Does that make sense?
It does. I think when you're a wrestling fan, generally, there's very few wrestling fans that completely disconnect from a product. I think even when you stop watching regular programming, you generally keep an eye on what's happening. It's also very easy to get plugged back into wrestling. You can miss
definitely
a year off, and it's like nothing's changed. So that is the beauty of it. But so really, I mean, we're talking like a 15+ year wrestling journey now.
Mm-hmm.
When does the move come for you from fan to becoming a wrestling content creator? So why did you decide you wanted to interview others within the community, and how does this idea for TTR first come about?
So TTR first comes about when pandemic, to be totally honest. We're going all the way to 2020. And that first lockdown, Ben, I'll be honest, depressed mess over here because it fell the week the government locked us down the week before my 21st birthday.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So all these plans I had to go out with friends, out with family, up in smoke. And I just, for whatever reason, my brain couldn't accept it. I don't know whether it's part of like my medical needs or just couldn't accept. Like, we can go out. It's not like we're going to die. I couldn't accept the pandemic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of us couldn't. It's none of us has ever experienced a time when we were physically told you're not allowed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
That's very challenging. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot
Definitely. So for that first one, not great. Didn't really do a lot. had a lot of what the kids are calling on social media rotting days, where I didn't get out of bed or anything,
Okay.
didn't do anything. And then you'll remember, as a UK guy, we got let out around the June time, if
Yep.
memory serves correctly,
Yep.
but then locked back up by Christmas of 2020, if memory serves correctly.
Partially locked up, and then January the 5th, if memory serves, 2021 is when we got the second biggie, or the third one, because that was
Mm-hmm.
my kids went back to school for one day, only to then be taken out of school for the next 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
That was the
So,
worst. But 2021 lockdown was the worst by far.
oh, definitely. So then around this time, I'm sort of thinking, what can I do? I need something to do. I was watching wrestling, I was thinking, but I need a project. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it was like, hmm. So it was never the plan to interview like creators and stuff. If you watch the early days of my channel, there's a few videos of me interviewing people about the pandemic, sitting in gardens, sitting in because I had a buddy that moved away during the pandemic. I interviewed him about the changes he found whilst moving away during the pandemic, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then I had another support worker on because she became a support worker during the pandemic. So I spoke to her. I spoke to the agency leader at the time about how running a care company was different. And then this would have been July 2021. Then spoke to, I put this video up because at this point, my channel was, have you heard the phrase a box of frogs?
Yes. Yep.
I was just posting whatever I liked, whether it
Yeah.
be a movie review, whether it be um, a TV show
As most
review.
content creators do at the start of a journey, I think that's fair to say.
Exactly. Whether it be my favorite colors. I think I even did a video on that, believe it or not. And one day I stuck up this video being like, hey guys, you've seen me do several interviews. Here in our 10 people I'd love to interview. And then the Cultaholic crew was on that video, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
as one of the things. And I still don't know how he saw it. Adam Pacitti was one that was on that list, and he DM'd me on Twitter or X now that night, being like, "I know you're not good with Zoom or anything, but I'll help you. I'll set all the Zoom up for you. I'll edit it for you, and yeah, like let's do it."
Oh, I love that. And then away you were. Then that was the beginning.
Well, that was kind of a way that I was, Ben, because if you watch that interview, it's not as good. It's, saying it's not as good makes it sound really vain, but like it's not as polished as Tom Talks Rubbish is now, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
No format, no. I wasn't even recording on my laptop, so literally just me sitting here with a little iPad and shouting questions at Adam, for lack of a better word, because I watched our interview back when you was last on my show for a research project that would have gone out in January. And I remember you telling me you had all the branding sorted for Resting Life and Good Journeys. I had none of that. I just literally wanted to talk to people, and I'd done no research because Adam gave me these 2 dates. But part of me was like, if I don't take the first one, what if he gets sick from the
Mm.
virus at that time? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
One
I'd
one
done,
one thing you learn as a content creator is how to do, and especially as an interviewer, is how to do research very quickly.
mm-hmm.
To take the opportunity when you get it, and get the questions, but always having to be prepared with the unexpected questions that your guest might not have been asked before, or
Oh, dude,
trying
I know
to
that
offer
now.
something different. Yeah,
You know
takes
what I
time.
mean? So if you
Takes a lot
watch
of
that
time.
it's first interview back, it's like shouting at Adam, no format, no nothing. But that did start a relationship with the
So I
Cultaholic
mean,
crew.
we share a producer in Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions. Obviously, he's done beautiful work for Wrestling Life, beautiful work for TTR.
Mm.
Um, what's that kind of journey been like for you in terms of moving to, as you say, a slicker production, understanding the format, and kind of being where you are today?
So Jeff is a big part of that. And he will never take credit because he's just so humble and he's just such a good guy in that respect.
Yeah.
But Jeff has been a big part of that. And I first reached out to Jeff. I think he reached out to me, you can correct me in the comments or things like that, and was like, love your work. If you ever need a producer, please let me know because that's my field. And at the time, I was like, okay, but I didn't have the capital to pay him. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't have that. But then I got a small little job because I work at Cineworld in my hometown for people that may not know. And the extra money that I had, I was like, instead of wasting this on video games or food, because food is my passion, not gonna lie, uh, why don't I try and make things better? And it was around, I think Jeff might have done about 100 interviews for me now, because it was around the 150th interview with the great man that is SRS, Sean Rossap, that he first came on board and
Okay.
did the research, did the editing for me.
And how many episodes are you on now?
So I worked this out the other day, actually. We are close to 250.
Wow. And who have been some that, I mean, you said at the start about kind of you have this list of people you really wanted to interview. You know, I'm a very big kind of proponent of manifesting success. You know, put it out into the universe and then see what happens. Who have been some of those interviews that you've been really surprised that have come onto your show? And more importantly, who are your like dream future interviewees? If you could have a few ideal guests on TTR.
So Chris Van Vliet was the big one. Like I'd very publicly said Chris would be the one that if I got that, I could end the podcast happy. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
Chris is a genuinely very good dude.
Oh, definitely. And he's been nothing but supportive to me and things like that because he was one of the ones that I reached out to early on. But I believe he had just moved to LA at the time and was just setting himself up again and was like, please keep reaching out to me. Do you know what I mean? He was
He
never
also doesn't.
like,
He doesn't do that many interviews. Like it might seem it because you see Chris Van Vliet's face all over YouTube because
mm,
he's so prolific, but actually he doesn't do that many interviews on other people's shows.
no. And this is why I was found it very cool when your second platform, Second Mountain, got him good journeys with Second Mountain. I do apologize, my friend.
That's okay. Thank you.
Got him on because I was like, yes, that's my dude there. Because you and I have spoke about this.
Hmm.
I take a lot from you because I think you're really good.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So
Likewise.
Chris was one. Brian Zane, because I had Brian on early, getting Brian for a second interview was like, yes, I can finally show what I can do, if you know what I mean. Rather than being like the shouty man, as I used to call myself back then.
There's a real lesson in learning to be quiet, and that's
Mm,
one of the things that many podcasters actually overlook. Is I don't believe a podcast should ever be about the host. I always believe it should be about the guest.
I
And
agree.
there's a real challenge in actually staying quiet when naturally in conversation you want to interject and jump in,
Mm.
just letting the conversation breathe and be silent. Why because you've really specialized in kind of creators, creatives, people involved, around this industry. Why has that been your focus and not as I do, which is, really focusing on the talent itself?
Because I think everybody, and this is no disrespect, but I think there's a lot of wrestler interview podcasts out. And I really wanted to show, for example, I'll use Sean Rossap as an example. I really wanted to show that Sean Rossap didn't start with 200,000 followers on social media.
Mm.
He started as a fan. Does that make sense?
Yep.
He didn't just get his first scoop and be like, okay, I like wrestling now. This is my thing. He was always a fan. You started as a fan and things like that.
Yeah, going back to Chris Van Vliet, I mean, it's very easy to get carried away in how successful he is now, but he has been doing this for 17 years. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's 17, 18 years. It's the organic build and the consistency of continuing to do something year after year after year.
Not to blow my own trumpet, but he praised me on my consistency in
Yeah,
that episode. He
well
was
done.
like, you post, because he'd seen that I've posted. He's like, you post regularly because I'm really proud of this as well, Ben. Since July of 2021, Friday at 6 p.m. UK, we haven't missed an episode.
Amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, and it is because I think it's easy to overlook, and I did for many, many years as being someone who consumed podcasts before I produced or hosted them. Very easy to overlook how much work goes into consistent
Mm.
production of a show. So that's a real testament to you. but I'm not. I'm going to hammer you on this question because I really want to get an answer to this. So, dream guests for the future, Tom. You've had some really
Simon
big
Miller.
names on, but Simon Miller.
Simon Miller's the one now. Chris was off the bucket list. Simon Miller's the one that, like, please, like, if I can make that
Okay,
one happen.
Simon Miller. We're putting this out into the universe. Come on to Tom's show as a guest.
Again, he's another one that's been very like, I'll do your show. He's just a bit like Chris, very busy man. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yep.
So he's one that I'm like, that would be fun. I'd love to have the Cultaholic crew back on and just show how I've improved. Always sounds really vain, but I know what I mean.
Yeah. I think just you just keep doing what you're doing. You know, keep building on these conversations, keep building a platform, and all of these guests will come. I have absolutely no doubt because you're great at what you do. What does success look like for you? We talked a bit off air about, the kind of challenge between hobby versus making a living
Mm.
from content creation. What does success look like for you in terms of this show and where it goes from here?
Am I still enjoying it? Am I still enjoying it? It's the big one. If I'm not, the podcast goes away tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if I'm speaking out of turn, Jeff can edit this out. You said your life has changed and the hobby time's over. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yep.
So I'm like, I want to enjoy the hobby time. And if one thing that I found really funny was Jeff sent me an email about 2 weeks ago as we record this, being like, hey, dude, need the thumbnail for this video because of how we do my intro. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But he was like, if you're not working at this time, please get it to me tomorrow. I think I sent it to him like 5 minutes later. He was like, sorry, dude, didn't think you'd still be working. And it's like, this isn't work to me. This is fun. This is how I relax. This is
Yep.
how I could decompress because without going into too much detail of my previous living situation, I could not hide behind these episodes, but like this was my safe place. Do you know what I mean? If
Yep.
there was arguing going on, if there was somebody there'd been an argument, if like I was waiting to move into this flat and things hadn't gone wrong, and I was like, I'm sitting down with Ben today. At least that will give me
Yep.
5 minutes in my cocoon, for lack of a better word.
Yes. And absolutely. To echo your point, I think the second that this stops being fun, you shouldn't do it. When it comes to these conversations, I have an absolute blast every time the little red light goes on and I hit
Hmm?
record on these conversations. It's wonderful. The work bit is the planning the conversations, the scheduling them, the reaching out, the aligning diaries, the
But
marketing it, the
again,
getting it out there. It's a lot of work. It's great, but it's a lot of work.
and this sounds so weird, but I love all that. I love that part. I
Yeah.
love the reaching out to people. I love doing research on people and finding out things that I didn't know
Yes.
about
Oh, that's great. And
people.
also, there is no feeling like the returned email from someone that you really, really are
Yeah,
looking forward to having an interview with saying, yes,
100%.
I'll do
Like
it. It's
as
amazing.
soon as because the reason the Chris episode got followed up on was Chris follows a lot of people. He follows the John Cena aspect of social media, doesn't he?
Yep. Yep.
So he followed me back, and I was like, because I'd emailed him about a month before for not even to do with wrestling, just an Ask CVV episode. Just like, this is my question, because I'm still a fan. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely.
And he was like, he didn't manage to answer it on the show, but he emailed me back and he was like, I know we've been talking about doing an episode for ages. Please hit me up after Mania and we'll get that sorted. And
Great
I was
stuff.
like, wow, that was so cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a chance to meet him briefly over Mania week in Philly, and yeah, good dude. And there's just so many good dudes in the wrestling business. Either
Hmm?
people who are working, in the business or the talent themselves. I feel very blessed to have got to know so many of them, and to call many of those kind of heroes, as they were to me as a child, and many of them who are action figures behind my head are now friends, and I still find that very surreal.
Oh, so do
Um,
I.
I won't ever stop finding it surreal that I, spend my days texting Mark Mero and chatting
Hmm.
to my good friend. It never stops being strange.
I
But
do
it's wonderful. It's
sometimes
a real full
one.
circle thing as a fan, I think.
Oh, definitely. But I do sometimes, and this is where the imposter syndrome can sometimes hit. It's like because of my wheelchair, I do sometimes wonder, are people reaching out because they know I'm in a wheelchair and they don't want to offend me? But also, I do struggle with, and please don't take this bit the wrong way, but like people can travel. I can't travel as easily. So I'm not making the connection. So it's like, I do sometimes wonder, are the small amount of connections I've got going to dry up?
I think just carry on doing what you're doing, and with every person you interview, see if you can get another referral. That's what I do. That works. Ask if someone can recommend you. It won't ever dry up. You're very good at what you do. Do you get out to live wrestling much? Are you able to?
No, because again, like I've had conversations about it, but wrestling venues really don't book wheelchair accessible
No,
places.
I was going to say even big arenas aren't particularly well suited, are they? To I mean, I assume the biggest kind of stadiums, arenas do have good level
Oh
access.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But
So like All In is when All In comes back in 2026. That's a bucket list thing for
okay,
me.
me, you, and Jeff. I'm putting it out there right now. Me, you,
I
and Jeff
hope
in
so.
2026.
We'll have to do something
That
live.
would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be really cool. But do you get what I mean? It's like
Yes.
I do sometimes wonder, are people just responding because of my chair? But then also, Ben, I do wonder if like because I do worry
Hmm.
if this dries up, will my success just go? Which is weird. Which is a weird juxtaposition because it's supposed to be a hobby. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but it's more than a hobby, isn't it? It's a lifeline and it's a connection and it's a really key part of your identity. I get it completely. I look forward. My episodes go out every Wednesday. I genuinely look forward on Tuesday evening to receiving the edit through, to watching it back. I
Mm.
love nothing more than watching back the finished product, knowing that I haven't got
I learned that
the
trick from you,
stress and
by the way.
anxiety that goes into the recording, actually seeing the finished piece that's going to go out to the audience. I love
I
that. I
learned that
take
trick from
pride
you,
in it.
by the way.
What, watching it back?
You told me because I never did that. I just sort of plucked, had my key talking points, and then just plucked it online and things. And then I think you mentioned it during our last interview. I believe so because we were talking about Jeff again. I was like, I'm going to start doing that,
Yeah.
and that's so helped my content. And like, I can't thank you enough for that.
Oh, good. I'm always looking for, not to be too critical of myself, but I'm always looking for what could I have possibly done differently in that particular question. Could I have allowed that more time to breathe? Would there have been a good follow up for that one? And I'm always making a kind of mental thing in my note of, okay, if I can get that guest back, what did I leave
Mm.
on the floor? Because there's always a bunch of questions you
Oh,
leave on the floor.
definitely, yeah.
So where do I take it from there? So Eric Bischoff would be a great example. I've had Eric on twice now. There was
Congrats,
so
by the way.
much I couldn't get through first time with Eric. The second time, I was so ready. But also the second conversation was so much better than the first because I know him now, and crucially he knows me. I know him obviously from 30 years of watching Eric Bischoff. Now he knows me and he knows what I'm all about. And so those
Yeah.
second, I think going back to Chris, a part of Chris's success, I think, is because so many of his guests he's had on numerous times now. He's got such a natural
Mm.
rapport. When he's interviewed someone three, four, five times, you are friends. And through that becomes the beauty of the conversation because with friends, you let your guard down, you're raw,
Mm.
authentic, you're less likely to answer the stock questions. I'm always very kind of conscious of trying not to ask too many people about favorite matches,
Mm.
travel partners, how they got into the business. They are all very interesting things and they have their place within the conversation, but they're also the go-to stock questions that most podcasters ask. So I try and steer away from
Mm.
those while also always making sure I weave in, whatever my favorite match was of that particular person, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to try and
Mm.
find out who trained them. I do want to know some good road stories, but it's about context and the layering of it into a conversation.
Whereas me, I have a segment called generic questions.
You do. And that is coming up right now, my friend. Are
That's
you
brilliant.
ready?
Can we just talk about how that came about quickly?
Absolutely. Of course
So,
we can.
just quickly, as you said, when I first started out, I was asking a lot of the same generic wrestling questions, and I was getting comments like maybe they were hate comments, maybe they were just constructive feedback of really like your things, but you're asking a lot of generic wrestling questions. So I was thinking, do I stop or is there a way of doing this? Because I was like, I'm sure Sean gets this is where the spiel comes from. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Where Sean was like, I'm sure Sean gets asked this a lot on social media. I'm sure Brian gets asked this a lot on social media or in comments. So now they'll have a place to be like, I've answered this. Please go watch this. So that's where the spiel came from.
And it's your thing now, isn't it, as well? Tom's generic questions. I love it.
I think as well, because are we going to talk about my legacy after? Because I was asked about
We
legacy.
will talk about legacy. Yeah, we'll talk about legacy.
Okay,
Don't you worry. But let's get to some generic questions. Are you ready?
let's do this.
Okay. So your first one, Tom. Your favorite match of all time. What
It's
is it
so,
and why?
it's so hard, dude, because obviously I ask these questions on a weekly basis to people, but I actually had to think about this when I was like, I'm going to, people have done this on my show before. I'm going to give myself two. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
So my favorite AEW match is Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes at Double or Nothing 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite WWE match is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26, believe it or not 25,
Interesting. Okay.
26.
So talk me through both of those matches. What is it about both of the storytelling of those matches that you love as a fan?
So as a fan, I obviously, until AEW came along, Ben, to be honest, I was strictly a WWE guy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But that also means that I'd seen the Stardust versus Goldust segments and things. And I was one of those people that advocated for it to happen at Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so when that didn't happen, but then I saw they were getting this on a big show, for lack of a better word, I was like, I need to watch this. And then that match has another layer because I don't know if you've seen this, but I did a podcast with Cassidy Haynes from bodyslam.net for a long time called Wrestle Watch, where we got to watch matches back and talk about them, basically. And that was the first episode we ever did. So
Okay.
that one really speaks
special
to
place
me.
in your heart. Yeah.
Oh, definitely, dude.
So then why
And
WrestleMania 26 and not 25?
again, because I'd got into wrestling after WrestleMania 25, I didn't see any of the build up.
Right. Okay.
But then obviously I saw all the build up to the 2010 match, which was Shawn Michaels versus the career. And even as a kid, I knew how good Shawn Michaels was, how good he was for the wrestling industry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How good he was in that respect. And but I also knew how big the streak was from going back and watching matches. So I was like, this is huge. Either Michaels can't wrestle again or Taker's streak comes to an end. I don't know which one I want to happen, but I want to see it. Does that make sense?
Such
Then
a
the
crazy
match.
show that because obviously you got that match headlining, but you've also got the return of Bret Hart, which is just,
Oh,
a hell
yeah.
froze over moment that I couldn't ever wrap my head around happening. Such a strange kind of two halves, like the three kind of key people from my childhood, all occupying a big show in 2010. Utterly bizarre that night.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, like that. I love that match. And the match lived up to the hype. I think as a story over moves guy, I love that. The moment where he's pulling himself up, digging his nails into Undertaker's chest. I love where he's putting himself up and then he slaps him as if to say, I'm done, finish me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like his old yellow moment, isn't it? It's like, I'm sorry, I love you moment.
And it's better than I'm sorry, I love you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a little bit less cheesy, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. Favorite pay-per-view card?
So this is really hard. And this is the one that I've seen guests struggle with all the time.
Yep.
And I think I agree with that. Again, I'm going to have two because I'm an AEW and a WWE guy. AEW, I'm going to say All Out 2021,
Okay. And why is
which
that?
is the generic answer, but it's their version of Mania X7. Do you know what I mean? It's where the crescendo of AEW happened. You see Danielson come in, you see Cole come in, you see Punk's first match back, you see that phenomenal cage match between the Bucks and Lucha Bros and things like that.
Yeah, I remember that night well.
Yeah. Huh? Say that again.
Remember that night well. Incredible show.
You weren't there, were you?
No. Just watch it live. Just I remember how much I popped when Cole comes out, and then 5 minutes later Danielson does. I was like,
Yeah.
What is happening?
Exactly. And that was my moment. And this was the moment that I knew, because I'd enjoyed AEW at this point, but this was the moment that I knew because we'll get into one of my favorite wrestlers later. I'm not going to spoil it, but one of them is to do with All Out 2021.
Okay.
If that,
So what
that
was your
makes
other? You mentioned so that's your AEW. What about your favorite WWE pay-per-view, Tom?
so. Hmm, People are going to think I'm weird for this, but it is SummerSlam 2013.
Okay. Yeah. Cena,
Cena
Daniel Bryan.
Bryan,
Yeah.
Punk, Lesnar.
Yeah.
The Ring of Fire match is terrible. Like, I don't include that, but still fun because I was a kid that never saw an Inferno match. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You didn't miss much. Yeah.
Oh, God, no. God, no. But do you get what I mean? So, seeing fire to me in wrestling was really cool, even if it was stamped out by.
Yeah.
I don't agree with him now. I don't like him now, but Del Rio Christian is a sleeper hit on that show. It's a good
That was a
match.
great little rivalry. That was. I
That's
enjoyed that.
good. That's good. Team Road Scholars Implosion is fun on that show. Yeah, it's just a fun show to me. But if you want to call it a two-match card, you can call it a two-match card.
Favorite wrestling theme song.
Cult of Personality. Or actually, no. It would have if we'd recorded this last week, Ben. It would have been Cult of Personality. But
Okay.
it's actually Metalingus by Alter Bridge, Adam Copeland, or Edge's theme.
What's changed? Why is that now your favorite?
Because I heard it in an exercise class for the first time and I popped huge.
I love that. I love that. The highlight for me was Clash at the Castle 2022. The crowd for that
Singing along, yeah.
for that because I think that was the first time really everyone had sung along to it. It was
Mm,
just absolutely magical, and you could see him welling up. But that was an incredible moment that night in Cardiff.
yeah, I agree. As someone that watched on TV, good to see that.
Favorite tag team?
This is the one that I struggle with the most because there's so many good ones. It's either New Day or FTR. I can't pick between the two.
Okay, oh, that's two very strong teams, and then the biggie. Your favorite wrestler of all time? I suspect I know which. This is going one of two ways based on your AEW answer. So who is it?
Brian Danielson.
Thought so.
Yeah, it's
And
Brian Danielson.
why is he? Obviously, you know, I'm a Bret Hart guy. Number one, I would say my top three are Bret, Kurt Angle, and Brian Danielson. So obviously, you can see which way the wind blows for me in terms of the
Mm.
workhorses of
And
wrestling.
I would agree with that. I would
Yeah.
agree. They're my top three, just in a different order. But
Okay. So
Brett's
what is it
purely
about? What is it about Brian Danielson? Obviously, you became a fan in 2009, so I guess you've really watched so much of his
exactly that,
prior
exactly
life,
that,
really. Yeah.
exactly that, Ben. And I saw his growth, for lack of a better word, in wrestling. And because I
Mm.
didn't understand indie wrestling at the time, I thought he was terrible when I first saw him because I saw him on the NXT game show. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So I thought he was really
Although,
bad.
do you remember his incredible match he had with Chris Jericho, like on NXT?
Yep,
Amazing. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. But in terms of charisma, I thought he was really boring and things like that. And then as
Little
I
did
got
you
old,
know, eh?
as I got older, dude, like watching Ring of Honor, like the Nigel McGuinness rivalry, the
Uh,
Punk matches in Ring of Honor, his Planet's Champion run might be my favorite overall championship run of all time. Maybe, maybe I don't know. Maybe anyway, um, might be my favorite run of all time. But his work in AEW put him over the top for me. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. And all in 2024 was just a beautiful
Beautiful
ending to
moment.
that story. Yeah. I really wish I'd been there. I was there all in 2023. I really wish I'd been there again for 2024 because that was a stunning moment to watch on TV.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I'm putting it out into the universe, Tom. Brian Danielson, get yourself on TTR. Let's
I would
manifest
love.
that as well.
I
Let's
would
get the
love
American
that,
Dragon
man.
on here.
I'd love that, but I think in the words of Matt Striker, I think I'd mark out far too much.
Well, I mean, look, so he's obviously left an incredible legacy in wrestling. What's your legacy, Tom?
Oh, he's good with the segues.
Yep,
um,
one does try.
I think because I had this conversation with Dom Smith, the guy, who I consider my mentor in
He's
this
good with the name
space,
drops. There you go.
who's I don't know who I consider my mentor in this space. in the episode that went out last week where we did the history of Tom Talks Rubbish and things like that. He said to me, and a lot of people have said this, your legacy is exactly what I wanted the channel to be, Ben, which is I've shown that there's more than a traditional creator that. Does that make sense? Yes. I've given light to people like your good self, no disrespect. Like, I've had people like you on my show. I've had up and coming creators. I've had big creators on. I've shown that they're still fans and things like that. And Dom calls me the wrestling journalists all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy if that's my legacy.
Yeah, I really like that. The wrestling journalists. Mm. Well, I'm not gonna do your outro because this is all you. What I want to know is if by any chance this is someone dialing into TTR for the very first time and have loved this conversation, or if they're new to the show, is there one piece of content or an interview from your archives that you would encourage people to check out after listening to this today?
Oh, I can never say one, so I've got two.
Sure.
It's the Chris Van Vliet one because, again, to me, that is you set up what you wanted to do moment. You could walk off into the sunset now. Yep. Because he was the one that I was like, I just want to have a conversation with him. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
And my latest interview with Brian Zane, it's the interview that I use to get work now. You know what I mean? It's the interview that I show as a sample of my work now and things like that because everything just went perfect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
No internet issues, no microphone issues. No bad questions, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
No like questions
that don't really land. Yeah.
Questions
we all have those moments where you're like, oh, that hasn't worked.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. But no questions that didn't really land. No like awkward pauses and things like that. I think you'll never do a perfect piece of work because if you do perfect, then that's it really. But if I was to say I did a perfect interview, I think that was the Brian one.
That's your 5-star match right there.
Yeah. And I'm happy that being my 5-star match.
Well, I really appreciate you letting me interview you. It's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. Just keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And keep building. I'd be really excited to see where your channel goes from here.
Thank you. I'm no good with compliments. I'm your classic British bloke that's no good with compliments. I really appreciate that, dude. You know how much you've helped me and things like that when it comes to your help and stuff. And I was really honored when you said, yeah, I'll do this. Like, I'd love to do it. But I'm going to give you the floor, man. People know where they can find me, but please promote yourself a little bit.
Okay, yeah, my show is Wrestling Life with Ben Veal. I try and do something a little bit different with a podcast. So I interview lots of kind of top talents from today and from yesteryear, but I try and go a little bit deeper in terms of their personal lives, the impact that wrestling has had on their lives, the sacrifices they've made, whether it's been family, whether it's been walking with faith, whether it's been injuries or self-doubt. Very blessed with some of the guests I've had on so far. I mentioned Eric Bischoff already, for Lillian Garcia, Mick Foley, Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell, lots of names. And I'm very blessed. Mark Mero obviously has become a dear friend. Really excited by where the show's going and grateful to everyone that has checked out an episode, left a comment, listened to an episode, all that good stuff. You can find us on all the social medias at Wrestling Life Online, especially on YouTube.
It's well worth doing, guys. I've always said one of the probably if I had to say my Mount Rushmore of interviewers, he's up there. One of the hardest working dudes and one of the nicest as well. If you guys have liked about hearing about my journey and you want to hear about others within the wrestling media's journey, you can follow Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube at Tom Talks Rubbish and follow me on Twitter or at Tom Talks Rubbish. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Bye. Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.